Hello, this is Christina Wallace, and today I am going to try and introduce, to the best of my ability, cold porcelain clay called Modena. It's very famous for a very good reason, and I'm going to try to cover what it is, what it does, and what it isn't and what it doesn't, and try to remove some of the confusion that it seemed to be causing. So the very first thing to watch out when you purchase your Modena is to know not to purchase Modena soft if you want to actually purchase cold porcelain. Now, the one that you get and the one that's right for you is a very dense Modena, just like this. It takes up less space and yet it's very heavy, which kind of gives you one of the clues. And when you squeeze the clay, when it's still in the packaging, it doesn't bounce off back, your finger kind of sinks. If it's very hard and finger doesn't sink, it's not a great idea to buy because it might be a little too old. Now this is the equivalent or a very similar type of clay to Modena soft, and as you could see, it's got completely different marshmallowy kind of texture. I'm going to show you some of it again, don't worry. Modena soft is very similar to it, and it's just a different clay. It has its use. Often it's used to add to the other Modena, to the main cold porcelain, just add a little bit of a white color to it. And or you could also use it by itself to make flowers, but that would not be cold porcelain flowers. I'm not sure what they would be called, but they kind of clay flowers similar to foramin or something. So anyway, the way I would use it is I would add it to Modena, about 20% of it. I normally eyeball it, but yeah, it's about 20%, and it's just to add Modena a slight whiteness, because when Modena dries, it tends to go slightly off-white, and so adding a little bit of DECO or soft Modena clay just kind of helps color. Modena is one of the easiest, if not the easiest clay to work with. It's just unbelievable in its quality, and even if you use other branded clays, never mind self-made clay, and yes, you could make it yourself. I'm going to leave the recipe in the description. So anyway, if you use different clays, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you would see that sometimes the stickiness of clay, it just gets a little bit uncomfortable. With Modena, you never have this problem. It rolls beautifully, not only in a special sleeve like this red one, or you have something very similar for pasta machine, but unlike most other pastes, it actually rolls straight on a green board, and you probably, most likely, not going to get it with any other paste, or certainly not with the same ease. And it rolls very, very thin. I mean, obviously you could do it with gum paste, but with clay, it's one of the drawbacks of clay. It does tend to be stickier. And as you could see, it rolls so thin that you could see the numbers underneath more or less, which is kind of a thing to aim for when you roll out your paste. And another thing with cold porcelain, when it falls like this, with most makes it would stick together. If you're not careful and just let it fall like this, you have to re-roll, which is a bit annoying and time wasting. With Modena, you could get away with it. This is another reason why I really, really like my students to use Modena, because it just makes their life so much easier. Now, just a quick comment to make about rolling your Modena or anything else too thin. Thinness is beautiful, especially the edges. If you roll it too thin though, and it would apply more to cold porcelain than gum paste, if you roll it too thin, your texture may not show up as well as you would like it to. So that's not to say you shouldn't roll it thin, but it's just to give you a heads up on this one. So as you could see, it rolls really nicely. It rolls straight on the green board, and it comes off, and it's just beautiful to work with. So yeah, if you're a student, see, it just you could just squeeze it and it rolls without any creases. Beautiful, beautiful clay, in my opinion. So yeah, if you're a student or if you have students and you teach them how to make cold porcelain flowers, I mean, if you do, you probably won't need any of this instruction of mine, but just to say that I really, really like using Modena for students because it just eliminates this unnecessary learning curve, which could be then tackled later if using different clay or self-made clay. And as you could see, the cutter, it's quite a detailed, slightly awkward cutter, and the cutter test has been passed very nicely with this clay as well. Just there, you don't even have to cut it on a red sleeve, so it's easy to pick up. Now, another thing I want to say, if you have worked with cold porcelain already, you would know that most of the time when you made your cutout, it's a good idea to put it to one side and let it dry for 5 minutes or so, just to give it that slight dryness, which would allow it to vein really nicely without sticking or tearing. Now, with Modena, you could most of the time skip that step unless you're using really awkward and detailed veiner. But with most veiners, you could vein it straight away as long as you put a little bit of petal base or some kind of a greasing on your veiner. You could just go ahead and complete all your steps of veining and then move on to the next step, so you don't have to bear it in mind that your cutouts are all out there. They shouldn't over dry or else you'll waste them, and you just go ahead, you vein it and put it away to dry. And I think that is also a very, very nice feature that just makes your life it just makes your life easier. Okay, so while our test petal pure Modena is drying, I'm going to show you how to recondition your cold porcelain if it got a little bit hard. It doesn't go crumbly, but it just gets a little bit hard to roll out and work with. So you add water. Some people recondition it with Nivea or some other cream, and they seem to have no problem with it whatsoever. And in all fairness, I used to do the same and I never had any problems. But then I read from a reputable source that if you do that, you risk your petals, etc., getting misshapen with time or just drying out wrongly, simply because the composition of clay may change a little bit with all the proportions and stuff, may change a little bit with adding too much cream, whereas there's no negative effect that I've noticed or read about with adding water to it. So this is what I do, this is how I recondition it. So here's a David Austin's rose I made with Modena, with no white paint or DECO or similar added, just some other colors to make it tinted. And it's quite flexible. I will show you how strong it is in a minute. But as you could see, it's slightly shiny. Modena has the shine, which you may or may not like on your flowers. Personally, I'm not mad on it on rose, I will see, or similar. For example, here you could see peony made out of Thai clay, and it's matte. It just got no shine whatsoever, which is the effect I really like. I'm not going to be doing any reviews on Thai clay simply because it's very, very hard to get hold of in UK. I cannot recommend the place, unlike I will do at the end of this video with Modena. So, but just to let you know what Modena is and isn't, and tell you more about its qualities really. And this is again Thai clay, and it's just little bit softer when you touch it, so more flower like than Modena, but in my opinion Modena is plenty flexible enough. And this green stuff is DIY Cold Porcelain, by the way. Just doesn't quite cut it, does it? While we're on the subject of shine and why it's not necessarily a bad thing, I'm going to show you this test flower that's a little bit rubbish, not because of the clay, but because of other things I did to it. But as you could see, the shine does not look bad on it. It's not actually Modena, it's a different clay, but it's also shiny. And so just to demonstrate that shine can also be okay. And this is the flower made with the same clay as that red one. So the red one was nothing to do with clay. It was something to do with what I was using, cutters, and how I was drying, etc. Now, this is a very interesting experiment, I think. Let's pause it and I'll tell you more about it. So, as you could see, from left to right, the first one is yellow label, second one is Modena with a little bit of DECO added, and the third one, the one on the right, is pure Modena with nothing added. As you could see, it's very strong. It's got slight off-white tint to it, but it's not at all transparent or looking weird. It just looks like clay. You're going to see what will happen when we look at the petal that I've just made that's being dried at the moment. I'm going to show you something very interesting about Modena. As you could see, Modena shows up, all the veining very nicely. It's very strong. So I was trying to kind of tear it, and as you could see, and this one is with a little bit of DECO. It does look whiter. I'm not sure my camera picks up on it really well. It's equally as strong, and the veins come up. It's slightly softer, as you could see. The veins come up as well, maybe a touch better, but negligibly so. And it only tears when you find something like this, and even then it does not tear easily. Now, this is the yellow label, and it's slightly more stiff and slightly negligibly more shiny, but in white the shine doesn't go through as much. And yeah, it's very strong. Yet again, you could fold it and do all kinds of things with it. These three were dried for days and days, so they're not freshly dried. They're pretty much more or less how they would be for a while to come. They might stiffen up slightly a touch. And here, this is the petal that looks like it's going more and more see-through. The one on the left, it's Modena, pure Modena with nothing added, halfway through drying, or say 10 minutes into drying. And the drier it becomes at this stage, the more see-through it becomes, which could cause panic in some people who are not used to and not expecting this to happen. It happened to me, and I was just really panicking that I should have added white to this clay and I didn't, and that I've spoiled a big bunch of my petals. So that's something to bear in mind. And if you're not used to it and don't want to freak out, or if you want your colors to show through better, use a bit of white paint, or maybe DECO if you have it, and if you want to keep your clay drier, which helps for some effects. It's nicer to have stiffer clay. And your Modena clay finally. So this is how you pack it away. If you leave thin strands, they most likely will dry out. So keep it as a big chunk. Wrap it up really well. I mean, if you use a lot of clay, I'm pretty much gonna use it within the next couple of days. One of these packs makes me 3 large flowers, so I use it up very quickly. But even though it's good to get in the habit of this clay to be doubly, triply wrapped, and I'm going to show you my ingenuine method of storing clay once I've started using it and put it in small bunches here and there. And ta-da! This is my ingenuine way to store my little bits of clay, my sexy pickle jar. But it does work. It does kind of allow extra security for it. because sometimes you mix up little small bits in different colors and you don't want them to dry out. Now this is the paint, it's oil paint, non-water based I think is better. I'm not sure if this one is water based or non-water based. Also, this is not a very expensive one, so they recommend to use a good quality oil paint for any kind of a tinting, including white tinting. So I'm going to show you the better make. Basically, the make of paint that all botanical sculptors use and recommend over and over again. And maybe with time I realized that my cheaper one would just go all grey or purple or whatever, and I would bitterly regret not having used it, and I guess that would mean I would pay the price. Just on the final note, I want to mention a couple of bases of using cold porcelain. Firstly, it shrinks a little bit compared to gum paste, which obviously doesn't shrink, and when it dries it goes by shade or more darker, so it really depends on the color that you use, so you have to play around with it and bear it in mind basically. Thank you for staying to the end of the video. I'm going to show you a couple of places here where to get a cold porcelain, and I see you all next week with a new tutorial. Please subscribe and share if you like this video, and thank you for popping in.